Hello, everyone. We just had an amazing conversation with author and writing coach Elizabeth Lyons. She's faced anxiety most of her life, but has still managed to become a super successful entrepreneur, mother of 5, writing and publishing coach, and she just had the best advice. I found myself writing it all down so that I could use it this week. She was so great.
Yeah, it was
For
amazing.
sure. She kind of talked about how in order to help other people, you kind of have to be experienced with that situation yourself in order to be the best possible coach and support person you can be.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can still empathize with others even if we don't know, but like she was saying, she draws from her personal experience when she's talking to other people, and they're always surprised about, wow, you still struggle with these things too, even though you're so successful and, established.
Yep, exactly. And just that anxiety doesn't look the same on everyone.
Yes.
And that you have to understand that even though you may not understand their fear or the thing that is inducing their anxiety, you can have a respect for them that they have anxious feelings like you do and like all of us do.
I love that she used the word respect. Because
Yes.
that's basically what it is. When someone is going through something that you don't completely understand, if there's a respect for what they're going through, then you can be a better support or friend or parent.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed how she kind of phrased things as well. For example, one thing that she's doing for herself is reframing how she thinks about anxiety for her own experience, how she's not saying I have anxiety, but she says, I experience feelings of anxiety.
Yeah, don't let it define you because it doesn't. It's something that you have to go through and you can handle it. And you're a cool, strong person and you can be more than your anxiety.
Absolutely. What's cool about that too is because she does understand herself, she's able to make those tweaks, make those changes, and she has a lot of strategies that she uses once she's facing these things. She says that she can get herself in and out. So when she's heading into a panic attack, she knows that she can do things like 5 things that you hear or look at all the things that are yellow around you because your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And I thought that was so helpful.
Yeah, it helps you get out of your panic attack. And also, if you're just having kind of a boring day, you can just hulk up, yourself into a panic attack. Just if you're feeling like you need some spice in your life.
Like a different superhero. What would that superhero be called?
Super stress. Super stress ball.
Stress ball. So good. Yeah.
The green panic. I don't know. None of those are great.
I love that, just watch for those signs, right? But I love how thinking about, always, if you notice yourself going into that mode, well, I can, pop back out of it, maybe stop myself from going too deep. Like you said, having a boring day. Why not? You know what? I feel a little spicy today. No.
That's not real advice. Nobody do that.
Literally the worst advice ever. One thing I thought that was really cool is she mentioned that the Dalai Lama struggles with anxiety. He talks about countering stress and depression. And I just feel like if the Dalai Lama struggles with something,
what's more human than that?
Exactly.
I'm actually enlightened. I don't experience feelings of anxiety. I'm enlightened.
Exactly.
Yes. Ooh, that's a nice twist. Enlightened man. Or woman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why?
Enlightened person.
Or villain. Really, it should be a villain. So with the Dalai Lama thing, reminding yourself that it's not weird.
Yeah.
Even if people don't understand where your anxiety stems from, maybe some people won't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that respect comes in.
And I like that respect thing comes into play when we're supporting people who have anxiety that we might not recognize. Like you said, it might manifest differently. And especially when she was talking about how people are surprised, to find out that she experiences feelings of anxiety herself. And they think, there's no way I would have ever guessed that.
Being able to explain to someone, okay, I'm really struggling right now and I need your support. Because for the most part, I feel like I can keep it pretty together. I'm not a huge complainer. And I find that some people don't understand that. So they might assume that I'm okay. And it would take me throwing a huge fit or having a panic attack for them to take me seriously. And those aren't any things that I ever do. So,
Right.
yeah. So I think we were talking a bit about like, it's fun to get that reaction from people like, oh, you seem like a total natural when, you know, we've worked years to be able to speak on a stage. But also it's like, give me a little credit, man. You know,
Yeah.
this is actually really hard.
I worked hard on that.
And on that same note, she talks about how you deal with those feelings. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
So for some people it's journaling, for some people it's meditation, and for some people it's just not any of those things, you know, and it's something completely different.
Renovating the whole house.
Yes, exactly. So I like that because we chat with her a little bit about how we don't enjoy journaling.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, we know that exercise is so good for people anyway, for anyone, but also for mental health issues. But not everyone likes to run, or not everyone likes to do aerobics or whatever.
I know that me and Sean were talking about how we have to be doing something, you know, physical, like he's ripping out the carpet on my days off. I'm weeding the lawn, or, you know, something like that.
Liz is knocking down walls.
Yeah. She's like, I love a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're HGTV.
Yes.
HGTV,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Oh, like the mental fixer-uppers. Like brain fixer-uppers. Half the episode is mental health and half the episode is a home renovation.
That's the superhero.
Right?
Demo man.
Yeah.
Demo man.
I like that.
Shoot,
I like
demo woman.
Demo woman. That's our that's our superhero. We'll make the pilot. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
My favorite element of this whole conversation we had with her was how she kind of has a very different perspective from everyone else we've spoken with so far, insofar as she was just really blunt with everything and just kind of practical and just, you know, I guess it was just fast paced in a way. And it just kind of was fun to have that conversation and just like a real talk.
And lots of practical wisdom, for sure. She has a clarity to her words that I find really helpful.
She has a clarity to her understanding of herself too. And
Yeah.
I think that's where the confidence comes from. And that's what makes it, I think when you've been dealing with something for so long, or if you've been working hard at something, it becomes polished. And while it sounds silly that, you know, like she's so polished at understanding herself about mental health.
It kind of inspired me thinking of when if you're LGBTQ, for example, and you come out to someone. And that's scary the first many times you do that. And it never gets super easy, but maybe the more you do it, the more confident you get in it.
Yeah.
It's a positive loop in a way. You're getting that positive feedback. Or if you tell someone and it's not as hard as you thought it was.
If they're supportive.
If they're supportive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like with anything, the more you do it, the better you are at it. It just takes practice, and sometimes it takes years and years of practice. There was so much practical wisdom from this episode that I know I got to take home with me, and I'm so excited to share it with our listeners, and I hope they have the same experience too. So grab a cup of tea and enjoy.
Health is understanding what you need,
being informed, finding that balance of mental and physical,
building yourself a support system,
figuring things out on my own and not letting it hold me back.
You do kind of have to advocate for yourself.
Because health, it's personal.
Hi, welcome. Well, as you wear a lot of different hats, would you mind telling us what that entails?
Okay. I'm an author and a book and nope, I'm not that.
I'm an author and a book.
That's pretty impressive. No book has ever before been an author also.
I know, I'm a book.
An open book.
Yeah.
We're all an open book.
That's a great bio description. I'm an author and an open
And
book.
a book.
I love that actually.
Actually, I kind of really like that too. Look at what we just created.
You know, we accomplished so much.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, you'll wake up tomorrow and not like it as much.
No, I'm an author and a book writing and publishing coach.
Awesome.
And I mean, that's what I do. That's what I've done for a while.
You're also a mother of 5
This is true.
and an accomplished, multifaceted businesswoman.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like you need to start over.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me prompt you again.
Say you're a book again.
Well, I mean, I've been what they call a serial entrepreneur forever. I mean, I've been inventing things and starting businesses and kind of doing my own thing for a long, 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 long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just where my passion is.
That's awesome.
I love that. So, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I am working on book 6 of my own,
Wow.
which ironically is called Write the Damn Book Already. And
I need
it
that
is
advice.
sort of, right? I know, we all do, including me some days, and I'm doing it. But this one is fun because it's focused. It's not focused on the steps of writing a book. It's focused on all the reasons why people don't write it.
That's important.
So, and yeah, well, what, and it comes down to so much fear and anxiety, which ironically is, what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So I love talking about that because I've experienced it on both sides, both as author and as coach.
Yeah.
And then I'm also working on, I have a couple of books coming out by clients soon. And I am writing a publishing, I don't know if we want to call it a column, on the current status of publishing for a group called High Tide out of Chicago.
Amazing.
Very cool. So, you talked a little bit about your clients and yourself and the anxiety and fear that kind of live among all of us, right? What's your relationship with anxiety and health?
So I have a very close relationship with anxiety. We're very, very well acquainted. My latest thing with it, though, is that I'm learning not to say I have anxiety and not to label myself with it or define myself as it's something I have, but to say I experience feelings of anxiety.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really small shift, but it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, it's
Wow,
just
yeah.
about your mindset and the way that you talk
Right.
about yourself.
And we've been talking about naming things too, like just identifying them and labeling them gives us power over them too. And I think that gives you a lot of control over how it interacts with your life.
Well, and I think too, when you can start naming things instead of having this umbrella term of anxiety, like I feel anxious or I have anxiety, if you try to funnel down to what you're actually feeling in this moment, beyond it just being anxiety, what is it? It's a fear of what? Or it's a feeling of lack of control of what? Once you can start putting names to it and assigning categories to it, you can more easily say, okay, how do I move past this? Or how do I move through this to the other side?
Right. Would you say that your personal understanding of going through that while writing a book, for example, has how do you think that has impacted your ability to coach people through those situations?
Really well. So I'm a firm believer that it's hard to coach people through things that you haven't been through because you don't truly understand how it feels. Now, I don't know what everyone else's anxiety feels like in their body because I'm not in their body, right? But the way that people express those feelings of anxiety are the same. What if no one reads my book? What if it makes someone angry? What if I look stupid? What if my brand is weakened? They're anxious about things, but those are the fears that they have, and they're the fears that I've had, and they're fears, frankly, that I have every single time I release a book. People who are working on their first book are always surprised to hear, oh my gosh, you still feel that? And your sixth book? Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's a level of reassurance, but I firmly understand that it's going to happen and that it's fun. And I put the word fun in quotes, but to figure out where it's coming from, because the cool thing is that feeling, that fear, that anxiety is affecting another part of their life outside of writing their book.
Yeah, that's a great point. Would you say that's something that you work on every day?
I wouldn't say it's uncommon. I don't know that it's every day, but it's probably 3 or 4 days a week. Something will just happen that will start to trigger the feelings. And I've had to learn to kind of go, oh, I'm feeling the feelings and catch them while they're on the upswing. And if I don't, and there are days when I don't, because I'm just too busy doing other things or whatnot, then I'm more in a it's like the farther you let it go before you address it, the more out of control it gets.
That makes sense. Nip it in the bud, right?
Nip it in the bud. Like what's going on here?
Yeah. That's
for
important.
me, one of the greatest solutions to it is just naming a few things I'm grateful for, which brings you back to like what's going well. And instead of focusing on all the things I didn't get done today, focusing on the one thing I did. And so when you can acknowledge your accomplishments and the things that are going well in your world, it diminishes the stuff over which you're trying to have control.
That makes a lot of sense. Because we're so focused on, I didn't get this done today. I still have this on my plate. That is still on the itinerary for my life, right? It's a simple, but it's such a difficult thing to switch or to pivot, but what did I do?
Yeah, because in that moment, well, it's like you can read all the books and all the things that give you all the strategies. And when you're not in the middle of a moment, all those things make perfect sense. You're like,
Yes.
okay, so the next time this happens, I'm going to stop and I'm going to breathe. But when it happens, you're like, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm just making that leap from like understanding what you can do to being able to do it takes time. It's a muscle. You practice it and you build the habit one instance at a time.
That's so important.
Well, that's a great point about practicing because we have so much practice right now. And I remember when I was trying to train my puppy, the trainer said, what do you want us to work on? And I didn't want the puppy to jump on people when it walked in the door. But the thing is, how often do people come to your door? Not very often.
Yeah.
So you don't get to practice it very much with the puppy, right? So she would say you have to keep having people come over and knock on your door and ring your doorbell so that you can practice those skills with this puppy, which I don't know why I thought of that.
I think that's a great analogy though. I mean, it's true. If you if you say, well, I'll practice my anxiety when we have a pandemic, like who would have thought 4 weeks ago, and hopefully it's not going to happen again in our lifetime, God willing, right after this. But if you choose a time to practice something and it's something that rarely, if ever happens, you don't have a good opportunity to practice it.
Right.
And therefore hone it.
And it's kind of like, how do I make it through a panic attack when you can't just practice a panic attack? You can practice kind of what you could do, but you can't really go through that and simulate, so that makes sense. Yeah.
So interestingly, over the years, I've learned that I can actually feel my way into or out of a panic attack. I have that level. That took a long time, but I have that level of control. And it probably doesn't say anything good that I can feel my way into one. If I start feeling those things happening, one of the first things I do, and this is not mine, it came from somewhere, but you name like 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, right? And another friend told me, pick a color, so orange, and just look all around and find all the orange things around you or all the yellow, because you can't think 2 thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
With as many thoughts as we think, which is absurd, 2 thoughts can't occupy your brain at the same time.
I was wondering the first time that you remember having anxiety.
I honestly don't know because I've had it all my life and I didn't know what it was. Right. So I can't say, right now at this point in time, I can't say, there was this time when I thought, oh, wow, this is anxiety. I just knew that I always felt kind of not quite grounded. That's the way I would describe it. And from a very, very, very young age.
So you have 5 kids. Do any of them struggle with anxiety?
Yes, 2. 2 do. 3. Got it. 5. No, 3. 3 of the 5 do to varying degrees.
Okay, so how does anxiety affect your parenting and help you help those that are struggling sometimes?
So first of all, because I know, like I've owned that I experience these things, even though my kids experience anxiety over things that I don't experience anxiety over, I have a respect for what they're feeling. And I have a respect for the fact that I don't understand what they're feeling. So I won't say to them, why are you afraid of the ice cream truck or whatever? Like that's dumb. I've never said anything like that, but I can totally understand where, like my kid's dad has never struggled with anxiety. So he really and truly, he acknowledges that he doesn't get it. I mean, he says like, I acknowledge that I don't understand why you're afraid of but he respects that they are. If we keep using the dumb ice cream truck analogy, he'll respect it. So I feel like it's just really important to let kids know that even if it seems like what they're feeling is completely weird or bizarre, that it's fine.
Okay.
Everyone's anxiety is different.
It's a lot more complicated. Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated.
But it's kind of like what you said with the kids too, with, I'm feeling anxious. Okay. But let's kind of like talk about, do you think that you've ever had those conversations or?
Like we go down so many layers that my kids are like, I don't even want to tell mom
Oh,
that I
no.
feel anxious because we're going to have to go down 30 layers. But that's what it is it's if someone says, this is giving me anxiety, okay, what is like, what are you really have to unpack it,
Mm-hmm.
because whenever someone says, I can't do that, there's a fear and there's a limiting belief about what someone can and can't do, which comes back to fear. And then you can I don't mean take control of it, but kind of, you run it instead of it running you. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person on the planet, except maybe the Dalai Lama, although I think the Dalai Lama has said that he has experienced feelings of anxiety himself.
Oh,
Well, we should look that up. Yeah.
we should call him.
I know,
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm just saying that even the Dalai Lama will be like, I'm human.
Yeah.
I'm having a human experience, right? So
Yeah.
as such, I think that people experience it to greater and lesser degrees.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But I'd like to know how having feelings of anxiety for most of your life has impacted your career choice and kind of how you're choosing to live your life in your career path.
That is a great question. And the reason is that someone said to me, I think 2 years ago, and he said it with love, but he was like, you are the absolute wrong person to be an entrepreneur.
Oh,
Wow.
Because
What?
Yeah, because being an entrepreneur is about taking risk. It's about uncertainty. It's about not knowing what comes next. It's about complete lack of control, right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
someone with anxiety, hello, hand up, or someone who experiences feelings of anxiety, see, even I'm still teaching myself, and someone who also my hand up, doesn't like uncertainty, like, why would I choose this? But I still did. And there still are many aspects of my personality that are not risk averse. So it's sort of been about putting myself in situations that are uncomfortable and doing that consciously. As a speaker, when I first started speaking, I was like so shaky. And even today, having done it for so many years, I'm not so rattled, but I still feel it in my body. It's just, I challenge myself to be uncomfortable because there's growth there.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Like a stubbornness.
Yes.
It really is. And I've been accused of being a very stubborn person. And I mean, I don't think that that's even remotely true, but
I refuse to believe it.
I refuse to believe that. But I think that stubbornness actually has helped me.
Yeah.
I think that there's growth and opportunity that comes from that. And also I can then speak to it. Clients and et cetera say, you're so extroverted. You can do these lives. You can go on stage. You can do TV. You can blah, you're so extroverted. I'm like, people, I am a total introvert.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everyone's surprised by that. And I said, yeah, I can muster the energy for this. And then I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I can go to an event and be surrounded by 300 people. But when they all go to happy hour, I'm going back to my hotel room.
I relate to this so much. That's me perfectly.
Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think part of getting comfortable being uncomfortable is knowing where your boundaries are and being able and willing to push them, but not trample them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know your boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to. And sometimes you learn them by mistakenly going too far. And then you have to say, okay, the next time. And that actually happened to me at an event. And that's how I know that, another thing I've learned about myself is if I'm traveling for a business, especially the day before I leave and the day after I come home, I schedule nothing.
Yes.
Whether it's preparation, it's more mental. It's not so much about packing and stuff like that. It's just about quieting all the garbage and then coming back. It is about like getting the laundry and stuff.
Well, there's the transitions are always challenging. Those are huge, have a huge impact on us.
And some people can come right back from an event and they can just hit the ground running. And I think that we do sort of a poor job in society of taking what we do and making it like everyone else should be able to do that. And if they can't, then they're insert label, right? Lazy, unmotivated. And it took me a minute to own, no, I'm not lazy. In order to be at my best, I need a day to decompress. And then I'll come back in at 100%.
Yeah.
Anxiety has so many faces. Everybody experiences it differently. Everyone that you see that doesn't look like they are experiencing anxiety absolutely can be, and there's so many misconceptions. I know I am 100% on the same page with you, and I have to set boundaries for myself. And I've had social anxiety and an extension of stage fright my whole life, but I've also been performing on stage my whole life.
Right.
So it's knowing how far you can push yourself, and when your fear is valid. Your fear is always valid. Your feelings are always valid, but when your fear is something that you should be afraid of, or something that you are recognizing it from an experience before, and I did it anyway and it was totally worth it. People can see someone who's on the stage all the time, or speaking all the time, or a successful entrepreneur, certainly not being an introvert.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I've had situations like that where I've told people and they're like, wow, I would have never guessed. And at
Yeah,
first
that
I was like,
happens
oh,
all the
that
time.
means I'm doing a good job. Yeah. But also I thought about it. I'm like, that kind of it didn't hurt my feelings, but I'm kind of like, it doesn't help. Like when someone says that now, it's like, wow, I would have never guessed you had social anxiety, or like,
That's interesting. Why do you say it doesn't help for someone to say, I didn't know?
Yeah, I was trying to think that through, and I'm just, but now what I do instead of kind of just hiding it is like what you said. I have power over it, and I tell people up front before I do that public speaking thing, before I talk at the meeting. I'm like, before I do this presentation, just want to let you know that it's really difficult for me. So if I, have a moment, that's why. And then I go into it and everything's fine. And I feel like getting it out there in the front of everything, and it just kind of eliminates it for me, which is really
What's funny about that is I've seen Sean present, and I can see why someone would say that about him, because you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because he'll start off that way in order to kind of have control over it, and you can see the look on people's faces because it looks like something he was meant to do. And I imagine it's the same for you, McKenna, and the same for you, Liz.
I think they say it because they think it'll flatter you.
That's a
Yeah. Oh, I
compliment.
know.
Like,
Yeah.
you make it look so easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I know
Agreed.
that's what
I
they
agree.
mean. But
Yeah.
and to me, like at first I thought of it that way. And then I started thinking about it like, no, I actually worked for years to be able to even stand here.
Yeah, and you're like, give me a little credit.
Yeah.
But the beauty of that is that when they can watch Sean do it, and then they say, oh, well, clearly this is something he was just meant to do. And then Sean says, well, no, actually, this is incredibly difficult. Now they believe that there's a chance that they can do it too.
Yes.
Because we give ourselves all these outs. People say to me with great frequency, like, you must never sleep. And I'm like, you don't understand how much I love to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't like that, because then they don't have any, and this word is a trigger point for a lot of people, and myself included sometimes, but excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take that away. And I think one of the
Yeah.
things that's really important is when you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, do it in an area where you are passionate, where you want the
Yes.
thing more than you fear the anxiety.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When we compare ourselves to others, I think that's where that problem comes.
Well, it sounds like you've made some really amazing strides and done the important work. What lessons have you learned along the way, or habits have you created for yourself that have made a big difference?
One habit that's made a big difference is what I had said previously about just trying to notice it as it's starting, and not shoving it aside and being like, I'll deal with that later, but actually just addressing it in the moment. And sometimes it only takes 15 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not like I have to sit down and journal for 3 hours. But another thing is actually along the lines of journaling for 3 hours, not thinking that everybody else's solution has to be my solution.
Good point.
So when you first start doing research on things like this, like how to manage anxiety and how to manage whatever fill in the blank is, you'll find pages and pages and pages and pages of suggestions. And that's all they are suggestions. And sometimes you'll run across people who will say, you absolutely have to meditate for 10 minutes every morning. You have to journal for, an hour every night. You have to. And whenever I see the word should or have to, I kind of shift away from that particular piece of information. Because if I feel like, oh my God, the solution to this doesn't bring me, it brings me anxiety,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like if I have to sit and journal for an hour, my God, which you'd think I would love because I'm
Yeah.
a writer. but it's not my chosen approach to managing those feelings.
Mine either. I get anxious about my penmanship when I journal
Really?
and
Mhm.
about the content.
Mm-hmm.
I only want what goes on the paper to sound good,
Yeah.
and
Just
nobody else is ever going to read it,
correct.
but
Mhm.
that's just how it is, and I can never find it relaxing. Or if I am journaling about something that's bringing up a lot of emotions, I don't want to do that either, you know?
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
If I'm journaling about, I don't worry about my penmanship when I'm journaling, but here's what I do worry about that I resonate with. Even though I know nobody else is going to read it, it's very difficult for me to sit there and write out like I feel uncomfortable with, and this makes me feel blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. For some reason, it makes me feel almost fraudulent in a way.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's not like I'm working through it. It's like I'm admitting it.
I find journaling vulnerable because I've found before that I've journaled and written down really private things about myself. And then I
Mhm.
throw them away because I
Yeah.
don't ever want to look at it's I've grown. It's
Yeah.
almost like revisiting
Here's the
Yeah.
thing, that's okay.
the throw it away.
Yes. So I
Yes.
have a
Yes.
client right now who has a book coming out called Show Up for Yourself. She advises that her clients, she's a psychotherapist, she advises that her clients get a blank journal.
Oh.
So there are no lines. And if you just feel like drawing out your whatever feelings, or maybe you want to write in a circle, or maybe you just, who knows what, you have that option.
That's great.
Further, if you write something, it's not a diary that you're saving necessarily for your great great grandchildren. So to your point, Karen, if you write something and then later on you just think this was back then, burn it. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. Burn
Yeah.
it.
And I was like, really? Like I can
I can
throw
burn
stuff
it.
away?
Yeah.
I can burn it? It's like,
Recycle
wow.
it,
Yeah.
Recycle it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Compost it.
compost
Go
it.
back to the earth.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the physical act of doing the writing that is so therapeutic and that you need in the moment or at the end of the day. But maybe you just throw it away as soon as you're done.
It's about getting that energy out of your body. So some people will go and do a 10-mile run.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And some people will go and like Zumba. I'm neither of those people. And some people, yeah, that's not happening. But like some people, to your point, that they journal and that's how they get the energy out.
Or they sit and
Mhm.
marinate with the thoughts like I do.
Yeah, letting them float in and out and in and out.
They're just staying.
Yeah, they're just sitting still. It's fine. Yeah.
Thought dialysis.
Yeah.
Thought
That's what we need. That's amazing. Oh man.
What do you do when you're in the moment you need to release that energy?
I pace.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like the fact that I'm not pacing right now while we're doing this, not because I'm having anxiety, but because whenever there's energy in my body, I have to move. And as you can tell, like
Mhm.
this is how I'm getting rid of my energy right now. I talk with my hands.
Yeah. Listeners
Yes.
note that she is.
Yeah, my hands are everywhere. I'm like,
She's flailing.
I do the same thing.
I mean, that's how I get my steps in. Seriously.
Yeah.
Do you do any sort of work with your hands or?
Well, no, really, like all joking aside, the DIY, I've never thought of this that way. So this is interesting. But like if someone says I need a wall to come down in my house, I am there.
Awesome.
Like I am there with my sledgehammer and we're going.
Let's do it.
But there is something about like tearing things out and building them back, and that's my exercise.
Yeah. That's really huge.
And it's not a violent thing, but there's something about like ripping all that out, and
It's cathartic.
it is cathartic. And I'm sure you
Mhm.
could go many layers deep into the notion of taking out the old and rebuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last weekend, we were feeling really anxious over here, and we thought, why don't we move your office to a nicer space? And you know what? We hate the carpet in this room, and we know there's hardwood underneath it. So let's just rip up the carpet. It was a whole day.
Oh, all day.
But it was
Nice.
perfect, and it came out better than expected, and it felt so good.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think doing something physically with your hands is huge for me. You know, when I was living in Sydney for the last 3 years, I was always working on a farm. Then I came back to the States, and the first 5 months I was home in the States, I worked on a farm, on a horse farm, and then I moved to New York City. And
Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do with my hands now? So I've been doing calligraphy.
Oh, nice.
She's working on her handwriting, everyone.
I'm working on my penmanship.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
But I've been always looking for pottery classes. One of my favorite pottery designers in Brooklyn, they do pottery classes that are really reasonable.
Well, with my hands, I like to hold a glass of wine sometimes. That really chills me out.
You're amazing, Liz. Who inspires you?
I mean, so many people inspire me. I'm inspired by anybody who's just doing the things. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how many friends you have. I don't care how many social media followers you have. If you're just out doing the thing and I can tell that you're genuinely in your space of passion, that is so inspiring to me.
I agree.
It's not always easy to do the thing that you care about. A lot of stuff gets in the way, a lot of baggage, a lot of our own things inside, our own internal things, and then the external things as well, right? Being a mom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what other people think, what other people are going to think, what other people might think, what other people thought, you know.
What are you listening to or reading? Podcast, books, audiobooks, music that's been really inspiring you, or, getting you through the day, getting you excited, anything like that?
Okay, so Yeah by Usher is on like a constant replay, pretty much. That is the song. Also, Ain't Nobody by Shaka Khan.
Oh, nice.
If I need a boost, play those. Audiobooks, right now I'm about halfway through Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which is really, really good, but could induce anxiety if you're trying to compete with David Goggins. Like the man, that's somebody who inspires me. Not because of what he's doing, but because he's doing what he wants to be doing. It happens to be insane, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's insane. I'm saying running a marathon on broken legs is insane.
Yeah.
But it's good. And I actually have like a Spotify playlist that is all instrumental soundtracks from movies.
Oh, I do that too.
I love those. Yeah.
The score, if you will. Like,
yeah,
that's just me, but that gets me into a really good frame of mind to write or do anything from an inspired place.
Yeah. I was just talking the other day about how on YouTube they put film scores paired with nature sounds. So it's like you're listening to it outside. And I've been really into that. Our listeners are really learning a lot about me.
Yeah, they are. And I'm going to go find that. I'm thrilled because that is combining two of the best things.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us and chatting. And this was such a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Take care. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Health It's Personal. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts for bonus episodes and new releases every Wednesday.
Please listen, subscribe, engage, and send us topics we can explore that would help you on your journey.
Because health, it's personal.